Hi, I'm John from Just Whisky. If you like today's show, please click like and subscribe. And consider becoming a Patreon with the link in the description below. And thank you very much for all the support I've been getting and the new subscribers. Really appreciate the likes and subs. And remember, no matter how good it is or how much it costs, it's just whiskey, folks. Today we're going to be talking about and comparing the both 2020 releases. One is the Longrow Red 13-year Chilean Cabernet Sauvignon matured versus the 2020 Laphroaig Cairdeas non-age stated port and wine casks. The ABVs are very similar. The Longrow 13 Red comes in at 51.6, and they do describe it as a cask strength. And the Laphroaig Cairdeas port and wine casks comes in at 52%. It does not say it's cask strength, but I would assume that it probably is. As we know, Longrow is made by the Springbank distillery, and it is considered to be a heavily peated version of Springbank, and they do not chill filter, and they do not add coloring. However, the Laphroaig Cairdeas has no mention of chill filtration or coloring. So we can assume maybe they do it, but it doesn't seem to really make sense, especially at the cask strength. And I have small samples here. The colors, the Longrow does have a little bit of a pinkish, reddish tint to it, and the Laphroaig does as well. Cheers. But I think the Longrow is a little more reddish, and the Laphroaig is maybe a little more on the rosé, lighter pink side as far as color goes. The Longrow, Red single malt Scotch whiskey has been matured for 10 years in a mixture of bourbon barrels and refill sherry hogshead, followed by 3 years in Cabernet Sauvignon barrels from, let me get my magnifying glass here, from Montgras Integra Estate in Alto Maipo, located at the foot of the Andes in Chile. Only 9,000 bottles at cask strength have been bottled. And the Laphroaig, I will read a little bit of that as well. Cairdeas 2020 is a marriage of fully matured second fill ruby port barriques and ex-bourbon barrels finished in red wine casks. They have smelling and tasting notes, aromas of dark chocolate and menthol with pink peppercorns, toasted peaches, charred marshmallow, and a hint of plum jam, all intertwined with Laphroaig's iodine-rich peat smoke, resulting in a combination of honey-sweet taste and Laphroaig's signature medicinal smoke flavor. Okay, that's a lot to take in. That's a lot to take in right there. And as usual, Springbank, Longrow, Hazelburn, they don't offer tasting notes, which is fine. And of course, Longrow from Springbank is a Campbelltown Scottish single malt, and Laphroaig is an Islay, heavily peated, smoky, medicinal, hardcore Islay Scotch. Okay, we're going to start off with the Longrow Red on the nose. And I get candy cigarettes, those little chalky candy cigarettes that they still sell. That's really probably like a dried cornstarch ishy kind of a thing. So candy cigarettes, clove, definitely clove, chalk, a hint of wine in the nose, a hint, a little bit of cocoa and honey, but I'm really not picking up the smoke or the peat, particularly the peat. And what I think the extra 3 years in the Chilean red wine finishing, I think that really took away the peat, in my opinion. Okay, on the palate. It's dry with a slight sweetness to it. A little bit of menthol in there. And like I said, I think that wine has kind of mellowed out the peat a little bit, and mellowed out and kind of rounded off the rough edges usually associated with a younger Longrow, like their non-age stated. At some point, I do have a bottle of the Longrow 10, discontinued from years ago, which I have not opened yet. At some point, I am going to do a whole Longrow rundown. Well, I'll be doing the NAS, the discontinued 10-year, the 13-year, and a newer release of the Longrow 18. That will come at some point. Okay, so on the palate, the dry, light, sweet, and you definitely pick up and I hate these the farmhouse, funk. And funk can mean different things to different people. But generally, I found it with Springbank, it can go two different ways. One, in the Longrow 18, the newer one, the funk is like a burnt rubber almost, believe it or not, reminiscent of an Ardbeg, but in a little different way. But this one I would describe more as the funk being a farmhouse, barnyard, manure sensation, all in a good way, of course. Also, too, on the palate, it reminds me of old school, the white paste that we had when, like, in kindergarten or first grade. This is going back, you can see my age, going back a long way. But that, and back then when we were little kids, they said it was, made out of, horses, the pasty, and it was actually edible. And of course, as little kids, you're like, we all tried it, and certainly it didn't taste like horse, but it was that white pasty glue that I pick up from this. The finish is a medium finish, in my opinion. Okay, a quick rinse. Okay, now the Laphroaig. Again, the Longrow is a 13-year. The Laphroaig is a non-age stated Càirdeas release, which they come out with every year. The nose immediately, as soon as you open the bottle, you get the ashiness big time in your face. Ashy, and you also pick up the wine notes. But you definitely get ashiness, medicinal, band-aids. And I also pick up much subtler the candy cigarette note, like that chalky, compressed, but in a much more subtle way. On the nose, I would say the Laphroaig has, it's more complex. It's got more going on. Now you can see the fill levels. The Longrow 13, I've had open for quite a while, and I'm almost halfway through. This Laphroaig is almost empty. Okay. And here's how I want to talk about this. The first third of this bottle, I had the wow factor. I suppose I should take a drink of it, right? Because I've already talked about the nose. And there's a mustiness in there too in the nose. What I'm describing now is, obviously, this has had time to oxidize. This has been open for, well over a year. I think this one came out in the beginning of 2020. It's been open for quite a while. So the sensations that I'm describing are from the last third of this bottle, which has had a substantial amount of time to oxidize. You get your typical Laphroaig, and again, I think the wine has had a little effect on rounding off the typical Laphroaig profile. The finish on the Laphroaig is, I would say, medium long. It's a little more substantial than the Longrow, which I think you would expect. Definitely has that ashtray lingering sensation that'll stay with you for hours after you have drank this. The first third of this bottle had the wow effect for me. It really had the punch and the wow factor, and I would have rated it, the first third experience, probably a little higher than I am going to today. Then I started watching some other YouTube reviewers, and this Laphroaig Cairdeas has got very mixed reviews. Some reviewers really loved it, and a couple of the more prominent reviewers didn't seem to really appreciate it or enjoy it much at all. So then the psychological factor is like, am I what am I missing here? Because I thought I really liked it. So then the middle third reminded me in a distracting way of, when you go to the dentist and you're going to have some dental work done, and they're going to give you a Novocaine shot or two, and that little swab of numbing gel, it's got like a cherry flavor to it. They put it up with a Q-tip, and it's got a red tint to it, and they put it on your gums first to kind of numb it up, and before they give you the Novocaine injection. So the middle third of this Laphroaig Cairdeas reminded me of that artificial cherry numbing gel that they use in a dentist office, and I don't know the name of it. And so I kind of, with the middle third of it, I kind of fell in line with some of the detractors that didn't really appreciate it. But I think it was a bit psychological, to be honest with you. Then when I get to the last third, it came into another life of its own, and though that artificial red cherry numbing agent went away completely. And it's more of the Laphroaig that's been slightly rounded off with the wine cask, slightly. I think the Longrow Red has really been rounded off by the wine cask. It had 3 years in here. We have no idea how long they were finished in the port and wine cask over here. I'm guessing much less time than that. Okay, final thoughts. How would I rate and compare these? And would I buy them again? Through my journey, I appreciate more of straightforward bourbon finished or bourbon matured scotches. How would I rate these? They're both very different. The Laphroaig Cairdeas, you're getting Laphroaig, and it's a punch in the face. Very pronounced, very ashy. This Longrow is a much more mellowed out, slightly dry but easy sipper. I'm going to rate them both in the 86 to 88 range. Would I buy the Longrow Red 13 again? Probably not, although I'm enjoying the hell out of it. Would I buy this Laphroaig Port and Wine Cairdeas again? Probably not as well, but I would lean more towards probably buying this again compared to the Longrow, believe it or not. But the Longrow is much more of an easy sipper. I'll leave it at that. I do prefer Longrow 10 cask strength, or even Longrow. Cut that. Laphroaig. I prefer the Laphroaig 10 cask strength or the Laphroaig 10 probably over this particular Cairdeas. So there you have it. I would rate them both very differently, but in the same range, 86 to 88. Flip a coin, folks. They're both very different, and I hope you like this show. I know I did. So please click the thumbs up, like. Please subscribe. Appreciate all the new subscribers. And remember, no matter how good it is or how much it costs, oh yeah, and that reminds me, how much do these things cost? You'll see in some of my previous videos that I'm glad I say that because I forget to talk about the price. I paid $100 for the Longrow Red 13-year-old, and I paid about $90 for the Laphroaig Cairdeas. So they're close in price. You get 13 years as opposed to a non-age statement over here. Thanks for watching. Hats off to you all, and take care.